Any calendars that use the equinoxes and solstices as the beginning of seasons are in error. Any calendar that uses the solar system timeframes as the foundation for time reckoning are also in error. Any calendar that use either the lunar months, lunar Sabbaths, and lunar feasts are in error.
That's right. So all of these calendars, which one starts, which calendar you use, if it begins with anything dealing with the spring equinox, it's an error. So that includes the calendar of Enoch, the so-called calendar of Jubilee that people are promoting, the Zadok calendar, the lunar calendar, the lunar Sabbath calendar, the lunisolar calendar, the Mazareth calendar. It doesn't matter which one. They're all based upon the pagan understanding of the vernal equinox, which was put into place by Constantine in the Council of Nicaea. So if you have a calendar that's using that, I'm just saying it's clearly going to be stand out as false. So again, no lunar calendars, no lunar Sabbaths, no Enoch. You notice that the Enoch seasons begin also with the equinoxes. Those are really the midpoints. Scripture.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 33, verse 7. Why doth one day excel another, when as all the light of every day in the year is of the sun? By the knowledge of Jah they were distinguished, and he altered seasons and feasts. Some of them hath he made high days, and hallowed them, and some of them hath he made ordinary days.
So once again, as we look at this verse here, we know that it's the Most High's knowledge that he's altering his seasons and his feasts. He's distinguishing these things. He never even said, he said, all the light of every day is of the sun, but he never said that he uses the moon for feasts or anything. He says some of them he makes high and some of them he makes ordinary. So he has this prerogative, and this is why we follow him. We don't follow the sun, moon, and stars. The children of Israel were beaten badly and kicked out of the land greatly for worshiping the sun, moon, and stars. It's been a great plague that has plagued Israel up until this day. They still love lunar calendars and looking at the moon and the sun and want to follow those astronomical ways that the Most High had given to the pagan nations. He separated his people from those pagan nations, and none of the festivals that the Most High keeps on his scriptural calendar are geared around the equinoxes or solstices. That's, again, by Jah's design, and we can see, again, who is who when it comes to worshiping Jah in spirit and truth. This doesn't, when I say these words, I'm not trying to say I'm righteous or anything of that nature, but in terms of doctrine and of keeping the true holy festivals at the right time, this is what I'm talking about. And may the Most High have mercy on all of us. But if we know we can get it right, we must get it right. And we have it right. And we feel very confident in our research over the last 28 years that we can show and affirm very clearly, without a doubt, that these are the true seasons that we speak of.
Mm-hmm. And this is an important scriptural fact to understand, brothers and sisters, because Jah is the one that distinguishes days, and he's the one that lets us know what days of the year are holy and what days of the week are not, right? There's no sun, moon, or stars that dictates to us what days are holy. It's Jah's words.
That's right. Scripture.
Genesis 1 verse 14. And Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
So quickly, there's no mention of months, no mention of weeks or Sabbath, and no mention of holy days. I'll say this, as I say all the time, many people say that when it says seasons, and I've even seen translations of the Bible where it says holy days or special days. But this moed here is referring to the regular appointed seasons, summer, winter, the agricultural seasons, seed time and harvest. Those are the seasons, not the holy days. He didn't put those holy days into play at the beginning of creation. He gave his holy days to Israel when he made them a nation. And we can see that these seasons aren't referring to holy days just because when we look at when Noah came out of the ark, we still see the same thing, the Most High talking about his calendar continuing on.
Genesis chapter 8, verse 22. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease.
So you see here, Jah's making two seasons make one great season called a year. I mean, when we look at it, right? Winter, the rainy season, and summer, the dry season, that's a year. The cold, cloudy skies, also part of the heat and the hot, clear skies together, they're making a year. Everything here, when it works together, it makes a year. And you'll also notice that when it comes to the winter and the cold, it's also referring to the dark time and the nighttime. So here what you see on your screen are the words that we see from here, and also words that we can see in Genesis chapter 1 when it's speaking about the first day of creation. In that first day of creation, we have all the words we need for a 24-hour day. We have evening, darkness, night, and then we have light, day, and morning, which make a complete 24-hour day. Same thing, though, as these seasons. They make a complete year as well. I mean, we see in scriptures that it's likened sometimes as a day to a year, right?
That's right.
There are astronomical seasons that are governed by the equinoxes and solstices, which the whole world is deceived by and uses. Then you have meteorological or thermal seasons, which is temperature-based. And this is based upon when you're watching your news and the meteorologists are talking about things. And if you ever hear them say meteorological winter or meteorological summer, they're talking about something that's a little bit different than astronomical seasons.
Welcome to a new season, meteorologically speaking, but what's the difference? We take you to outer space and we start with astronomical seasons because after all, that's probably the one that you're most familiar with, the one that you learned in school. We know that astronomical winter began with the winter solstice, marking the day with the shortest amount of daylight of the year and also marking the time when the solar energy is the greatest in the southern hemisphere, not to be confused with the north. We know that that's astronomical, but what else do we know? Well, we know that they both start and end with the two equinoxes and the two solstices. But did you know that in astronomical seasons, they're not exactly 3 months in length? That's because there are actually variations in date. Bring in our new best friend, the meteorological seasons, which always begin on the first of the month, always end on the last day of the month, and they are always 3-month periods. And that's because there's no variation in date. In other words, at a side-by-side comparison, look at how much cleaner and easier it is to look at the meteorological seasons. Remember, an astronomical winter, even though the winter solstice is on December 21st, there are some years where it may vary. But in meteorological, there's no change, and it's always the same every single year. Boy, I wish everything in meteorology were that simple.
And then we have the solar or daylight seasons, which is the true scriptural seasons that we understand to be true, and the scriptures also point to that. And when you hear the term solar radiation, it means the amount of daylight or sunlight from rise to sunset, how long the sun is out. Nothing to do with how cloudy or if you can see it, just when the sun rises to sunset. That's called solar radiation.
Last time we checked out astronomical and meteorological seasons, but this time we will check out solar seasons. Solar seasons are actually based on insolation or solar radiation, where the solstices and equinoxes are viewed as the midpoints of the season. Solar seasons change about 3 to 4 weeks ahead of the meteorological seasons and about 6 to 7 weeks ahead of the astronomical seasons. And the best way to explain the seasons when it comes to solar is to look at a chart here involving the insolation at various latitudes in the northern hemisphere, starting off with the equator, 30 degrees north, 60 degrees north, and 90 degrees north. And we're mostly going to focus on the 30, 60, and 90 degree latitudes here when it comes to the increasing and decreasing amounts. So let's first start off here when it comes to spring, which consists of increasing insolation or solar radiation. And that's depicted here in the green for the months of February, March, and April. And you can already tell that those three areas, those three lines are actually beginning to increase. And it's with the equinox being at the midpoint of that solar spring. Now we move on into summer, where we see the months of maximum insolation or solar radiation, and that's depicted here in the red, and that happens throughout the months of May, June, and July. Now we start going in the opposite direction here as we start going into autumn here, and that actually begins in August, September, and October as we start seeing decreasing amounts of insolation or solar radiation. So you can already see how it's already hit its maximum in the summer, and now it's beginning to see that downward trend. And then lastly, in the blue there, we have winter, where it's the minimum insolation, and that actually happens in the months of November, December, but also in the months of January. And that is all when it comes to solar seasons.
So basically, there's 4 different seasonal years. I mean, there might be others, especially if you go back in ancient times. And what I mean by that is beginnings of years and seasons. There's scriptural seasons that we're promoting. There's solar seasons, meteorological seasons and the astronomical seasons. And then just scriptural seasons, and here we have spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Just scriptural seasons for this year, the new year begins February 9th, or that's when spring starts, May 9th, August 9th, November 9th. For the true solar seasons as well, they go by the solar seasons. And some of these are both early February, February 5th, May 5th, August 5th. And I'll say this as well. Sometimes throughout the 28-year cycle, of course, everything will match up. February 1st will one time match up with Abib 1. February 5th also will be Abib 5. All of these things will match up because the astronomical calendar, the Gregorian calendar, wanders and moves back and forth. But notice again where these seasons are, and you can verify these things yourself as well. Then we have our meteorological seasons. They begin March 1st, June 1st, September 1st, December 1st. Then the astronomical seasons, which all the world uses, and everybody, especially if you're using lunar solar calendars or any calendars that deal with the moon, they're going to deal with the March vernal equinox, March 20th to 21st, the summer solstice, you see the date there, September equinox or the autumn equinox, and the December winter solstice as well. These are the false satanic astronomical beginning of seasons that has deceived most people in the world with calendars. Even the Gregorian calendar is actually based around the time frames of those seasons. Even though they start spring, the beginning of their year at the spring equinox, but they do start their season that way. They just move January over the beginning of the year as a part of a deception and as well to deal with an economical type of understanding of the year.
This chart is a good comparison because you can see similarities between scriptural seasons and the solar seasons. And the solar seasons are more in line with the true scriptural seasons than the meteorological or astronomical.
That's right. And we've been deceived and brainwashed from we're children. It's like when you're a child, you go into your classroom, we see a globe, that brainwashes you right off the bat. And then when they teach you what spring, summer, autumn, and winters, you got to think about these things. And so I know that, teaching the days of the week and the calendars of the year and the seasons of the year are very, very important to us, in North America, Europe, in the education system that way. And I can tell you that they forward, the astronomical seasons when they're very young. You sing songs about them, you watch videos about them. And this might have happened to you as well. But it lets me know that, hey, if this is what they're doing, and they've always been doing it, we've all been brainwashed. I mean, you try to tell somebody that the earth is not round, they're going to be freaking out on you and calling you foolish because you believe that the earth is a plane and it's not a globe. But again, this is how deep the brainwashing goes. We've been brainwashed to think that these times are the beginning of the true seasons, so we can't see Jah's calendar.
That's right. And we just read in Revelation that Satan deceives the whole world. So when we're born into deception. Most of the things that they tell us which is true in the world is actually false.
That's right.
We grow up believing these things because we're deceived.
That's right.
When the devil thinks to change times and laws, when they teach us, when they say that the beginning of the year is, we are ending up believing a lie, and it's not true.
Exactly. So we read this already while the earth remains, but this here is what I'm showing you now. There's two calendars. I'm going to show you a little bit about what the other calendars, and then we're going to compare them. When I say calendars, let's call them seasons or years, seasonal years. We have just scriptural year, and then we're going to have the astronomical year. But you'll notice here, this is from the Enoch calendar, and when it says seed time, harvest, cold and heat, and winter and summer, look what they put here. They said seed time is autumn or the autumn equinox. They say harvest is the spring equinox, winter is the winter solstice, and summer is the summer solstice. So right off the bat, I know that this is a part of the deception.
Yep.
Right? It's part of the deception, and it creeps into calendars and time frames because all the devil wants to do is to make sure that we won't worship the Most High at the right times. This is why there's been an attack against the 7-day Sabbath, whether you keep it or not, and whether it's been changed to the Lord's Day for Sunday, or you want to keep half of a Sabbath, like 12-hour Sabbath, or you even want to start it, in the middle of the Sabbath, starting at the light. All of this attack by the devil has been great on Jah's holy days. And so as long as he keeps you on a calendar that doesn't keep the true festivals, but makes you think that you're keeping Passover at the right time, that's what, he's all about. But again, this is called deception. And when you look at this, on a chart. This is again the astronomical seasons, right? Let's start from for them. This is spring, the beginning of the year, which includes March, April, and May, and it starts right from here, from the spring equinox. That's the beginning of their in the green. Then the summer solstice is in the reddish pink, and then the September equinox in the orange, and we have just at the tip here, we're getting into the December solstice, which deals with so-called winter that we keep over here. So this is how it goes. But remember, we said that true beginning of the year starts in February, but they have February in winter. And that's why when people hear, hey, we keep, Passover in February, they look at this and this understanding comes up and it says, what? That's winter time. What are you talking about? But here's the trick. On these astronomical calendars and the lunar solar calendars, they make February the last month of the year, when February is really truly the first month of the year. And this is the devil's design again. If you know anything about what we teach, he's always splicing things in the beginning and the end and in the middle. And this is what's happened. They've made February, which is to be the first, they've turned it into the last. And that's one of the great deceptions. And we're sharing this information. This is up top is Jah's true almanac, how we're proving it. So January would be the 12th month. And then we have our seasons in color coded from February to April, as we learned about those rainy seasons, right? It starts from November, goes to the end of April for 6 months. May is the beginning of summer. We have the equinoxes and solstices in the red. Now, this is how it works with the satanic astronomical calendar, or what you call Jeroboam's calendar. So this is the beginning of the astro year. They make it March because they wanted to line up with the equinox. The vernal equinox is a very, very big pagan invention. Well, even though it's an observation, it's a pagan observation that way, not an invention. But you can see that they're beginning the year in the middle of Jah's year, or their season in the middle of Jah's season. And as it goes over, they start their seasons with the solstice. Summer starts with the June solstice. Autumn starts with their September equinox, and the winter begins with the December solstice, which we teach is wrong. Because if you take a look, comparing it, it's the middle, it's the middle, it's the middle. So when we have month 2, they're beginning month 1. And when we have month 8, they're having month 7. And what happens, their month 7, they keep the Feast of Tabernacles. But it's really month 8. But this is a part of Jeroboam's calendar shift.
1 Kings 12, verse 32. And Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month, on the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Judah. And he offered upon the altar. So did he in Bethel, sacrificing unto the calves that he had made. So he offered upon the altar which he had made in Bethel the 15th day of the 8th month, even in the month which he had devised of his own heart, and ordained a feast unto the children of Israel.
All right. So we can see again, we're going to get now into some charts. And I want you to be able to see this. With all of these things that we've talked about, Baalim and the sun, moon, and stars, and equinoxes and lunar cycles, it's starting to come down to this. So we see again the 15th day, the 8th month, he made it up himself. All right. It's tied to the calves worship. Calves are tied also to the worshiping of Baalim. Remember that? Calves, sun, moon, and star worship.
That's right.
He's changing it from the 15th day of the 7th month to the 15th day of the 8th month, which is the middle month of autumn. So I know when people usually get into things, right? And, when they learn something out there, you'll see, you go there and hey, September, October, November, December, right? And if December is the 10th month, because Dek means 10, Nov means 9, Oct means 8, Sep means 7th, then that would make January, because it comes after December, the 11th month, and February, the 12th month instead of the 1st, and then March would be the beginning of the year. And with this chart here, I've seen people go run with this and say, yeah, that's how it goes. But it's a trick same way. Yep. Yes, Sep does mean 7, Oct means 8, Nov means 9, 10 means, Dek means 10, or Diete means 10. But that's of the Roman lunar calendar. That's not of the true calendar. That's just the true Roman calendar. People think that, hey, it means that's how the Most High's calendar was. They're tricking you. That's Babylonian. That's, it's Roman. It's
Egyptian.
all of those things. Egyptian.
Remember, we just watched that video, the Romans, the Gregorian calendar, just got their calendar from the Egyptians.
That's right. And the beginning of the Roman year, when you look it out, is March, or the god of war, Mars, right? March means is dealing with the god of war. And this is when they would actually invade. They would invade in March and start wars in March. That's another story. But here's what I want you to look at. This is the truth of the matter here. September is not the 7th month. It's truly the Most High scriptural 8th month. Oct is the 9th month, 10th month, 11th month, and January is the 12th month. And you'll notice that January is a god of ending and beginnings, right? So when it's a god of ending and beginnings, they say it's the beginning of the year, but we know it's the end of the year. And of course, just like how the devil likes to flip things around, instead of having February being, which it should rightly be, the first month of the year, right? He's going to make it the 12th month of the year. And just so you know, in every country, everywhere you go, January is always the coldest month. And definitely when February comes along, as it's solar spring, the sunlight increases greatly until the end of April.
That's right.
So March is truly the second month of spring. Remember, we call the March equinox mid-spring. And this is how we see it. So March is the beginning of the false equinox year. That's when they say it's the beginning of their year, but it's false. He shifted everything over by 1 month to line up, and it's still here today. But this chart here, again, a very good chart for you to visualize what we're saying the difference is between the true seasons and the false seasons. Brother Java, do you want to add anything here?
Yes, well, I hope that brothers and sisters can see how Sean has laid out the chart, that the upper part of the chart are the true seasons. The true season showing the true beginning of spring, summer, autumn, and winter for 12 months. And then the lower part is the false astronomical beginning of the seasons, which the majority of Hebrew Israelite groups use, beginning in March. And so I hope that you can see that this chart displays the difference between the true beginning of seasons and the false astronomical beginning of seasons.
So again, just looking at it from a different angle, same kind of chart like you see here, but now it's just more vertical. Abib is starting up here. This is the mid-spring, and this is when they have their Nisan, their fake Abib, their spring equinox, again, and then going down. You can see that every time it's in the yellow, that's just middle of the seasons, and that's when they begin their seasons. Same chart, just a different format. Okay, this is another chart. This is just seasons and months. The climate, we've been used to this already. We know the latter rains, summer. We've seen that. We see the holy festivals also in Abib February. We have Passover and the Sheaf. The Passover, the second month, is in March. Feast of Weeks or Pentecost is in the third month, Sivan. There's no feasts in May, and there's no feasts in this month. None here. Trumpets begins in August. Ethanim, Trumpets, Atonement, Tabernacles. No feast at the September equinox. And then we have the 8th day dedication, and we finish off the 12th month of Adar. But now when we have the astronomical season, then we're lining it up. So here's our mid-spring. We follow it over here. This is their new year. And also they'll do their Passover and their Pishak, dealing with, again, the March equinox. They keep their first fruits in May, and sometimes their first fruits even goes to June. Yeah, it does.
Wow.
It does, into almost the second week of June. So you notice that, again, we don't have no festivals. Just when we have a Passover, there's nothing there. Outside of the Passover, the second month, when they begin their things, just not lined up with anything. Here's mid-autumn. We have no feast in this month, but this is when they keep their trumpets, Sukkot or Yom Kippur. This is when Jeroboam keeps his false tabernacles. They make it seem like it's the 7th, but following along across, truly it's the 8th. So this here is another chart as we go through. And if you're watching in the future or you get a chance to watch this again, I would advise you to screenshot this and study it.